Um, the next item is item 8C, which is a Nelson International Conditional Use Permit, site plan and variance for property at 10409 County Road 101. At this time, we'll take public input from people, and again, you have to limit your comments to 5 minutes maximum, and we'll see how it goes as far as how many. Do you have people looking to raise their hand now, Jessica?
Mayor, at this time, if anyone's interested, they can press *9 or use the raise your hand function under the participants tab on the computer.
I'm not hearing you very well, Jessica. I don't know if you're.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep, I can.
Perfect. At this point, I don't have anyone who's, we have one person that is, a few people that are raising their hands. So
Okay.
We'll start with TK. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Tanya Copeman, I live at 20825 Sunny Hill Lane. Okay, so I'm just learning about this in the past few days about this proposal. If you know where the Sunny Hill Lane is, it's not exactly near the location that is being proposed, but I do have a lot of passion around the particular location that they are proposing, and it's fit with that location and the roads and the highways, etc. So what I wanted to just point out was a few things. Keep in mind, I'm just coming back at this. I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the hours for the Nelson, what they're proposing. They're looking at an hours of operation on the building of 7 to 4 p.m. and 4 p.m. to midnight. 20 trucks service per day, approximately 50 sales per customers, 20 parts and service deliveries per day, and service center. Now, I want to say that although I'm not opposed to a mechanical shop in the community of Corcoran, I don't think it fits the location where they're looking at it. I don't think it fits the conditional use permit, because I do think that as you look at the conditional use permit, you have to meet the purpose of it is to authorize and regulate uses which may be beneficial in a specific instance to the general welfare of the community, yet unsure that such uses are not detrimental to surrounding property and are consistent with the stated purpose of the zoning district in which such uses are located regarding conditions of operation, location, arrangement, and construction. So as you look at this, you're going to be looking at County Road 101, which I drive on to and from work every day from County Road 30, and trying to get onto 101 at the intersection there by Mama G's is a terrible intersection that is not addressed that I could see in here. So if somebody finds it and can tell me about it, I appreciate that feedback. But as I read it, I see nothing being addressed on it. How are these trucks going to get to and from that location if not being on County Road 101 and 30 at some point, or they're coming from the Rogers area? Either way, it's a 2-lane highway. It has significant traffic on it already. And if you sit on County Road 30 trying to get on 101 in the morning at the traffic light, there's many a morning that I've literally had to back my car up in the turn lane because the semi or big vehicle could not make the corner. Otherwise, I would have been hit. And thank God there was nobody sitting behind me, or I wouldn't have been able to back up, and what would have happened? So I obviously have a lot of passion in my voice, so I apologize for that. I just don't think that the needs and the objective of this particular type of instance is appropriate for that particular location. I don't live there, like I said. Stieg Road, that area, there's a lot of homes over there that are getting built, right, with the bellwether. I go back to comments earlier on the call tonight, and that is stewards of the land, stewards of the community. I don't think these two things are being served by this particular business in that particular location. I also believe I heard earlier that, forgive me, I'm going to say, I think it was Brian, you said your realtor person said that if a facility is within touching, hearing, or seeing distance, that the property value will be adversely impacted. Now, how can you tell me that the houses in that area, and even though in the future developments, that bellwether, and I do not know the residents on the corner of 101 there, are not going to be adversely impacted by having this building and the sound of the equipment running for the hours that they're proposing until midnight? How is that a feasible, good option for an area that is a lot of residential. You do have the campground. I did read the comments from the KOA and that they would like to partner, but they were concerned about the hours as well. I've also spent time at that campground. I just think that those particular components would make this an extremely detrimental thing. And although they might meet some other requirements of the conditional use permit, I do not think that they meet the very key one, which is consistent with the stated purpose of the district, and that it doesn't cause disturbances detrimental to the surrounding property and are consistent for that. So obviously I'm not professional at this, don't care, just wanted to get my opinion out there and share with you some of the very words that are in our own ordinance and codes. And those are my thoughts. That's it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else, Jessica?
Yes, there are a few more folks who've raised their hand. Next, I've got Craig Warren. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Craig Warren and I live at 10139 Elm Lane. Okay, I moved to Corcoran on March 2nd of this year. I was a little surprised to learn about this proposed development, and I've been trying to come up to speed in the last couple of weeks. I think what I was going to talk about mostly was what the previous speaker had talked about, and that's the zoning ordinance issues, I guess the subjective ones if we're categorizing them. I was a little disappointed to see in the agenda item 8C that the answer to those on page 11, A, B, C, and D were simply rephrasing the issue to say that the development would not interfere with people's enjoyment, health, safety, comfort, etc. I would like to point out that regarding item A, it's obvious that it is an light industrial corridor planned under the comprehensive plan, and I question whether or not this type of business is the optimal selection for that area, given its proximity to the homes nearby. It seems the issues that people have talked about, noise, the views, the traffic patterns, and maybe something other in the light industrial category would be more appropriate. In item B, I would say that I can't speak to the morals portion of that, but health, safety, and comfort, I think would be impacted by the extended hours of operation, as the previous speaker talked about. 7 a.m. to midnight is actually before, those are hours before and after the active hours of many of the residents. You know that this is a 55 plus adult community, and not everybody gets up at 6 o'clock, although many do. And I would guess that many people retire before midnight. And the hours of operation are a great concern to the comfort and health and safety. In item C, the CUP is not to be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property nearby. And I think that Brian mentioned earlier, and the previous speaker mentioned it as well, touch, see, and hear. This property will certainly be, this business will certainly be seen and heard from for those hours of operation. And it looks like there's an expansion already. I looked at the plan briefly, and it looks like there's already an expansion to the building proposed or thought of anyway. It's going to be bigger and louder. 20 trucks coming in, tractor trailers, not pickup trucks, but tractor trailers coming in every day. 50 sales customers coming in, parts and service, odors that haven't been here, smells and sounds and activity that hasn't been here and wasn't expected when those of us who came to Corcoran. We came here for a setting that was much more natural and rural, as expressed in the Corcoran vision statement, that it would be that the natural character of the area and the agricultural roots would be respected. I think that's what we were expecting, and we were hoping to live out our later years in a more rural setting and a more quiet setting. So I just wanted to touch on the quality of life issues, and in one other item, I think it was not necessarily consistent with the idea of less noise to produce a statement from the mayor of Wilmer, who said that there hasn't been any complaints from the residents. Nelson has been there since 1962, and the people that moved into that area came in 2005 and 2009. They came into a predominantly commercial and industrial area and decided to build a home near those facilities. That is not what's happening here. What's happening here is the residents are here, and Nelson is trying to come in and move into our neighborhood.
Craig,
not
Mr.
the
Mayor,
other way
we're
around.
past the 5-minute mark at this point.
Okay, I hope I've expressed myself clearly. Thanks for the opportunity to say something.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. We have caller ending in 6545. I'm going to ask to unmute. You can press *6 to unmute yourself. If I could get your name and address for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Ho. My address is 10410 Brockton Lane in Maple Grove. I am actually from the KOA campground across from the proposed site. Our campground has been there for over 40 plus years, and I just want to say up front that we are a business, just as Nelson International is, and we are not opposed to development in Corcoran or Maple Grove. We're here tonight to just ask for assistance from the City Council to address some concerns that we have that could potentially negatively impact our business. And we want to be good neighbors. We want to have a good relationship with Nelson as well as with the City of Corcoran. But as mentioned previously, some of our concerns are the hours of operation. In particular, Nelson International being open until midnight. At the campground, we have a very strict quiet hours of 9 p.m. and we patrol before and up to and after 9 p.m. to make sure all of our guests are quiet for the enjoyment of everyone around them. The other concern is noise. And I know in the Planning Commission, these have been talked about and addressed to some point as well, the power tools. And I know they talked about putting mufflers on the power tools, but I just wanted to bring those up as well as potential engine braking noise. Trucks coming off of 101. And we are talking additional traffic potentially on 101 at night. Currently, County Road 101 after approximately 8 p.m. gets very quiet. I know during the day there's a lot of traffic, and we do hear the traffic noise from 101, but after 8 p.m. it becomes very quiet. And it seems, based on discussions, that a lot of the activity at Nelson will typically start after 3 p.m. after that first shift when they're bringing in the trucks to be of service and worked on. So it seems like a lot of the activity will be in the evening. So, and then the other thing is lighting. Lights from the trucks as we're driving around. Now this has been addressed. They've discussed in the Planning Commission meetings about adding additional trees and shrubbery to help address that. But from our standpoint, we want to find a solution so that Nelson can, if the City Council decides to approve the moving forward with this, we want the solution so they can be where they're at and we can be where we're at, and we can both be have a good positive relationship with each other. So I just wanted to bring these concerns up from our point of view, and hopefully you can take that into consideration. So thank you for your time.
Oops. Thank you, Jim. Anybody else, Kelly? Jessica?
Yes. Joel Cadlick, I'm going to go ahead and ask to unmute. And if you could state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Yes, good evening. My name is Joel Cadlack, and I live at 10510 Robert Lane, right off of Stieg Road, just down from the proposed development site. And I just wanted to dovetail off a few points that the other folks have already made. First of all, I agree with all those points. The main reason that I am opposed to this is the location and the fact that 101 is not equipped to handle the truck traffic. The first person that spoke mentioned the intersection at County Road 30 and 101, and it only has turn lanes coming from a couple of the directions, and semis and even larger straight trucks have a hard time navigating that intersection as it is. And I also have not seen any plans to drastically change that intersection. So I don't know if that is the case or not, but I haven't been able to find information regarding that. And then the other gentleman who mentioned the mayor of Wilmer wrote a note saying that Nelson International didn't affect the residents there. Nelson International location in Wilmer is on the corner of Highway 71 and Highway 12, which are both 4-lane highways. So it's a much different area. You know, it's not virgin woods and field and farmland like the proposed development site that we're talking about here. So I just respectfully ask the council and mayor to oppose the location. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Joel.
Mayor,
Anyone else?
yep, the next person we have is Lori Batts. Lori, if you could give your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Certainly. My name is Lori Batts, 9965 Elm Lane in Bellwether. And I'm assuming you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I too am going to be building off what other people have already commented on. Just this morning, I too had to back up on County Road 30, or on 101, because a truck could not make the turn onto 101 from County Road 30. Fortunately, I was able to back up, but the semi could not make the turn unless I had done so. That's a huge concern in terms of traffic. I'll also build upon the Wilmer comments. I actually drove to Wilmer to see what it was like around there. The traffic noise is pretty loud. So those residents behind there, those homes, they have to deal with road noise. They couldn't hear what Nelson was doing no matter what. The houses are also twice as far away. They're primarily rental units, and they are, I don't want to be snotty here, but they are smaller homes, and I'm going to say they're less expensive homes. Not that they aren't entitled to, you know, quiet enjoyment and all that kind of thing, but they are cheaper homes. I think if you drive, I'm assuming you've all been to the Bellwether development. He's put a lot of money into the landscaping, the monuments, the trees, and it just kind of hurts to see that a quarter mile down the road, it's going to be a big old nasty looking truck facility with who knows what kind of landscaping. The Nelson statement says that the mufflers are going to reduce the noise. It doesn't mean we're still not going to hear it, especially at 11:30 at night, because you know how noise travels. Nothing was mentioned about smells, the diesel smells. I don't know what kind of mitigation you can do about that. So that's a concern for me. Other than that, I share the concerns of the Stiegs mentioned in the letter that's in the packet. And I do hope that, I don't know what kind of powers you have in terms of this planning and the zoning. I hope they are able to find accommodations elsewhere. I don't think this is the right location. I thank you for your time. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Anyone else, Jessica?
you, Mayor. Tom McKee. Tom, I'm going to ask to unmute here, and if you could go ahead and state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Tom McKee, 6633 Bridle Path. I will be brief. I know everyone's put a lot of time in tonight, and I appreciate everyone's time. I just want to encourage the council to seriously consider the concerns of the residents in the Bellwether and surrounding areas, particularly given the type of use and the hours of operation that have both been mentioned by other concerned residents. I think it poses some serious issues, and I just want to voice my support of their concerns and hope you will consider them in your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Jessica?
Mayor, there is one more hand up at this time. If anyone else wants to raise their hand, they could do that by pressing *9 or using the raise your hand function. But the one that I have up here is a phone number ending in 1484. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. And you can do that by pressing *6. Thank you. If you want to state your name and address.
Hi, this is Maureen Major. I live at 19154 99th Place, also in Bellwether. I want to just mention that I too have had to back up at the stoplight going south on 101, turning left onto County Road 30. Back up 4 semis. They don't fit through there very well. It's hard for them to even make a turn when there is a car not in that intersection. And this is just in good weather. This isn't even in the winter when we have snow and we have piles of snow and we have reduced lane size because of snow. The other thing too, I just want to ask the council when they consider this to please deny it for the reasons. I sat here and listened to the whole entire reasons that you guys gave when each one of you spoke about the church and the reasons that were brought up of why it's a great opportunity, but it is definitely in the wrong spot. And I think those comments also fit to the semi-truck facility. But if those comments are really valid for something as a church, when that's a whole different entity, but it's a great entity, and not saying semi isn't, but it's probably more of a fit around homes than a semi place would be. I would look at those comments and say that they actually apply to this even more so than a church. And I don't want our area here to end up like a Clearwater exit on 94 with having a place like that come in. So hopefully that's something that can be looked at and have a bigger area in the city where they're able to utilize their services. You know, some of these other roads of, yes, they're not on I-94 where it's going to be an exit off the freeway, but you've got some other major roads, 116, 19, some of those that may be able to handle something like this better than 101. Anyway, thank you for your time and hope you vote no.
Thank you, Maureen.
Mayor, we have 2 additional folks that have raised their hand. Deborah Chachansky.
Actually, this is Mike Sahansky.
Oh, sorry about that.
Right. And my wife and I are 6-week residents of Bellwether, and we love it so far.
Welcome to Corcoran.
Yeah, so far it's going very good. On this particular issue, obviously the main thing is noise. And regardless of which direction the trucks are coming from, if they're at a stop sign by Mama G's there, by the time they get to Bellwether, they've probably been wound through, let's say, 6 gears. And we all know what that sounds like when they're getting up ahead of speed through 6 gears. On the other hand, if they're coming from Rogers or wherever, frequently what they do when they're slowing down, they do use their engine brakes, or Jake brakes, if you refer to them as that, another noisy proposition. And the third one is that large facilities like this, which I've had some experience with in a previous life, during the summer months, the large bays, the repair bays, these doors are open. So what you get a good blast of is the sound of pneumatic tools, if you know what those sound like, and that'll just carry something ferocious. But anyway, up until last week, I had never been further down the road than Stieg Road. And so my wife said, let's go down there and take a look. So we drove down there and I thought, KOA, what is this? This was during the week. So we took a drive through the KOA. And even though it was past Labor Day and stuff, there was a fair amount of people camped in there and cooking out with the marshmallows, kids playing this and that, very, very peaceful setting. And I just can't fathom that a diesel place existing across the street from a KOA campground and somehow coexisting peacefully. So anyway, I just think the noise is a terrible killer. The diesel fumes, that's a nuisance as well, but the noise is, around this development is obviously people are getting concerned. So anyway, I appreciate you letting me speak. And
Mike, could you get your address just for the record?
it's 19265 99th Place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else, Jessica?
Yes, we have Jonathan Coots. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to unmute. If we could get your name and address for the record.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. My name is Jonathan Coots. I live at 19398 Lupine Lane. Relatively newer resident here to Corcoran, a little over a year now. Any of us that have been in a shop or even for that matter actually worked on a farm and you've had your own equipment to fix your larger equipment. Those tools do get loud. The machinery itself is very loud. I did hear that you said that they would put mufflers on the pneumatic equipment, but what I didn't hear was what that actually would result in. You're going to have X number of bays, you're going to have X number of equipment going at a given time. With those mufflers on there, it'll go from decibels X down to decibels Y, and kind of a real world example of what that kind of sounds like, right? Because there's a lot unknown here. And so, I mean, a lot of us that have worked around these tools, might sit there and say, oh yeah, it's great. But without that context, I think it's really hard for a lot of people to understand. So I would just maybe ask if there is a way to get the applicant in this case to be able to provide that context. I think that might be helpful. And that might also help this council realize that maybe those operating hours out to midnight may not necessarily be appropriate because that noise can only be addressed so much. With that, I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Anyone else, Jessica?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we don't have anyone else who's raised their hands. If you'd like, we could wait just a moment.
We'll give them a second here.
If you do want to raise your hand, it is the *9 button on your phone, or if you're participating on a computer or smart device, it's under the participants tab. And no one has raised their hand.
Okay, no one there. Let's move on then. We'll close the public input. Not that we formally had it open anyway, but a little unorthodox here. I guess at this time, Kendra, you have a presentation for us.
Mayor, I'll let Jessica pull up the slideshow. The property is on 101, just north of Stieg Road. There is a large wetland that separates the back half of the property from the remainder of the Bellwether development. And I say specifically from the remainder because this property was platted as part of the Bellwether development and was always shown on their materials as industrial property. Next slide. A concept plan was reviewed by the council back in January of this year. And on August 6th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing. And the Planning Commission had some concerns where they felt like the items weren't adequately addressed. So they tabled the item to September 3rd to allow the applicant to address the outstanding issues. At that September meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed the changes from the applicant and did vote 3-1 to recommend approval. There were questions about noise, but in reviewing it, the Planning Commission felt that the conditions attached and the landscaping provided, as well as the fencing provided, did meet the ordinance requirements through the attached conditions. Next slide.
Wait, can I ask a question during the presentation, or do I have to wait till the end?
Unless it'll throw Kendra way off kilter, let's go ahead and ask it during the.
It's related to the background part of her presentation, and I just want some clarification. I seem to remember that the industrial area was bigger, and when Bellwether came in, they asked us to rezone industrial to residential up there. It was a specific request of Bellwether. Is that accurate, or am I just making that up?
It's sort of accurate because when Stieg Road moved, that sort of shifted the line between the commercial and the industrial. And I think I can show that on a future slide here. But generally, the industrial area has remained the same for the last 20 years, with the exception of the space between the commercial and the industrial shifted when Stieg Road shifted.
Okay. It's just important to know like the full background.
Right. Yep. The slides to try to show that.
Okay.
I think the next slide starts that. So
all right, fair enough.
Guided and zoned industrial, and the industrial zoning district is intended to have things like auto detail shops, contractors operations. Those are allowed by right. Equipment rental, manufacturing, lumber yards are all permitted by right, but for some reason, auto repair is a conditional use permit. One could argue about the impact of a contractor yard versus an auto repair, but nevertheless, it's intended for these types of uses, and it specifically notes in the purpose statement that because I-1 may abut residential uses, I-1 industrial uses are regulated in height, lot coverage, setbacks, landscaping to facilitate compatibility. So it's clearly acknowledging in the purpose statement that it is often next to residential. So this was platted as part of the Bellwether second edition, as Council Member Bodema noted. As part of that edition, there are commercial and industrial lots that were platted as part of Bellwether. And the disclosures for Bellwether were required to identify that future use adjacent to the homes.
And Rick, can I ask a question too?
Sure.
Okay. Is this area also, because the map that was sent out, it looks like it's a business park / light industrial. Is that correct? And then
no,
if it is,
industrial.
So it's not business park
no.
/ light?
No.
Okay, well, I think the map that Brad sent out today showed it that way.
That's an old map.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I just sent out the 2020 comp plan that was adopted in 2002. I took a photo of it and snapped it and sent it to the council today. I don't have it in front of me, sorry.
Why don't I skip this slide entirely and let's move to that, because I think that's what you want to talk about. So go to the next slide.
Can I just ask you to clarify one thing you just said,
yeah.
Kendra? You said the disclosure for Bellwether required it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by that?
So their HOA documents note that there are commercial properties adjacent and part of Bellwether that will be developed in the future. So residents get that as part of their HOA documents.
So they receive that information upon purchase or prior to purchase that industrial facilities will be in the vicinity.
It's actually, unfortunately, it says commercial. It doesn't actually say industrial. It does say commercial in the disclosure.
All right, thank you.
But their graphics that they brought to the council showed the industrial side. But Jess, if you go to the next slide, I think maybe that will help with some of the questions. So you can see this is the land use map, and the arrow is trying to show the parcel that we're talking about. There is an industrial piece that's shown south of that. And I think this was Council Member Bodema's question. But when Stieg Road shifts north to where it is today, that industrial became part of the commercial that is shown on the land use plan, if that makes sense. And then the piece on the Stieg property, that's the lighter pink next to the light, the lavender, that's mixed use in our land use plan. So this is our adopted land use plan that shows industrial from our north border down to Stieg Road, the length of 101, and then shows commercial between 30 and Stieg Road. And so I'm not sure which, was it this land use map that was sent out today, I think Brad said? So
It was from the 2020 comp plan.
Oh, okay, that's my
20,
next
20 years ago.
That's my next slide, Jessica, if you go to that. So this slide is very small on my screen. Hopefully you can see it, but the one on the left is the 2020 comp plan. And back then the blue was, I think, called Business Park Light Industrial 20 years ago, back in 2002 when we adopted our first comp plan. So you are correct. Back in 2002, our 2020 land use map was called a little different, but it was Light Industrial Business Park. And then in 2030, when we adopted it 10 years ago, it was reclassified simply as light industrial rather than the business park light industrial. And so for 20 years, this property has been shown as industrial. The council has continued to reaffirm the importance of an industrial zoning district in the city on 101 near the Brockton interchange, as we talked about it during the 2040 comp plan, still seemed to make sense. But it is not a change from what has been planned. It was shown on the Bellwether plans as well, because this particular property was platted as part of Bellwether.
But Bellwether showed it as commercial, not light industrial.
Showed it as light industrial. Their disclosure is poorly written. The disclosure says commercial, but the plans show it as light industrial. I should have put that in the slideshow. I have it on my screen. I could share it, but I didn't put that in here. But yes, the graphics approved by the council for the Bellwether final plat did show that graphic as industrial.
So on this 2030 plan, in the Bellwether property, there's high density and, if I wish my eyes were good enough that I could read that. Does that say medium?
Yeah.
High density and mixed residential? Were both of those changed as part of the acceptance of the Bellwether plan to low density?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the Bellwether plan did have some comprehensive plan amendments that eliminated some of the higher density residential land use classifications and sort of adjusted some of the lines of the commercial and industrial areas, but generally kept the commercial and industrial areas where they had been for the last 20 years.
Okay, can I ask you one last question on land use, and I'll let you go on, I promise. In light industrial, it's a conditional use permit for motor vehicle, boat, and equipment repair and sales.
Correct.
Is there any land use in the city where that's allowed without a conditional use? Is it allowed in commercial or?
I do not believe so, but let me just quickly check. Because industrial is our most intense use, so generally, if it's a conditional use permit there, it wouldn't be allowed in other districts.
So I guess the point I'm going to get to is that if it's conditional use in light industrial and it's considered injurious because of its conditional use, really we're saying that it wouldn't be acceptable anywhere in the city because there's nowhere that it can be without a conditional use.
Correct. That is correct. It is not allowed in our other commercial districts or our business park district. I'm just going to double check the rural commercial. it would be a conditional use permit in the rural commercial, which is on 19 and 10.
Yeah, okay.
So those are the two districts, the industrial and the rural commercial, that would allow vehicle repair.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And as
Sorry
you, yeah, as you can see by the maps, we have a very limited amount of industrial. We have this area, we have the existing industrial park downtown, and we have a future industrial park down on 55 that does not yet have sewer and water. So for the foreseeable future, this is our industrial park in Corcoran, because there's only a very small amount of industrial in the existing industrial park. And Jess, if you back up one slide, we did add a little bit of industrial behind that with the 2040 comp plan behind the existing industrial park. But that's the limits of our industrial areas in the city. And those are the most intense types of uses. And so we generally try to locate them on county roads, and as the purpose statement says, provide tools to minimize impacts. So that's the land use background, both from the 20 years of comprehensive planning in the city where it's been shown as industrial, and the bellwether approvals that this was part of, that it was shown as industrial as part of the bellwether approvals. Next slide. 2 slides, I think. Next slide. This is the site plan. The right side of the screen is 101, and north is additional industrial property, as well as directly to the south. And you can see on this image, I want to point out that this doesn't show the whole site. If you remember from the aerial I showed you, there's half again as much of the property to the west that is a large wetland. So there's a significant wetland separating this property from the bellwether residential properties. That just doesn't show on the site plan simply because of space. But I want to make that clear that the property goes far off of this image. So there's a single access point off of 101 planned. That access point is planned as a future east-west road that would serve the residential and mixed-use properties on the Steig property, should that develop in the future, but would also loop through the industrial property to the north, the former Lucht property that extends to the north border, and have a second access point on the north side of that property onto 101. So this is a pretty significant road in the future. The applicant is providing a half of that 80-foot right-of-way with this project, and simply providing a driveway into the site for now, acknowledging that when that public street is built in the future, when the industrial property to the north develops, the city will build that street and they will move their driveway to the west end of their parking lot away from 101. So the building is centrally located on the east portion of their site. There is parking on the site. There is a plan for a future potential expansion that is not approved tonight. They would need to come back and get a conditional use permit amendment to do an expansion in the future. The building is 34,000 square feet as proposed. Next slide, Jessica. So this is the landscape plan, and what I want to point out is that along 101, that is a very thick row of landscaping. It's a mix of conifers and deciduous trees. That mix provides interest, but it also provides screening. And then they've got some lower level shrubs that provide screening from the parking that's there, as well as the building. So it's a mix of landscaping that provides seasonal cover to screen the building, but also provides some noise mitigation. Landscaping provides noise mitigation as well. The landscaping continues around the site, and on the west side, behind the building, they've got a 10-foot wall that they've added in addition to the landscaping, which is also intended to provide some visual screening and noise screening between this property and the other part of the Bellwether development where the residential homes are. So with the combination of the landscaping and the screen fencing, I think the noise mitigation is handled pretty well on this site, in addition to the distance between the Bellwether pieces. The applicant did provide additional fencing as well around the dumpsters, which are located in the back of the building, and around the loading dock, which is on the south side of the building, which will screen those areas visually and also provide some noise mitigation from those areas. Although that's a more rare occurrence, it's important to provide that screening as well. The next slide, Jessica. These are the images of the building itself. The architecture does comply with our ordinance requirements. It's primarily ephes with some, excuse me, some texture clad trim, a light gray with a dark gray trim, a little bit of signage on the front, but it does comply with our ordinance requirements. Next slide. This shows on the top slide, it shows a screening area for their loading area. You can also see that on the bottom slide. On the right, you see the screening for the loading area, and in the middle of the building, you can kind of see that dumpster fenced area to provide screening as well. Next slide. So it is subject not only to the ordinance standards in the industrial district, but also to the design guidelines in the ordinance, which does ask for some building articulation. The building setbacks are met. The parking flexibility is allowed by right along 101 to reduce the parking setback from 100 feet to just over 50 feet by adding additional landscaping. And they've done that landscaping to get that reduced setback. Next slide. There's two signs, really. There's one building sign and one freestanding sign. Those are consistent with our ordinance requirements. Next slide. And the parking meets our ordinance. It has parking that today would allow for future expansion. It's more parking than is required, is what I'm trying to say. Next slide. Again, a little bit more about the landscaping. They did revise it between the August and September meetings to respond to some of the concerns about noise and screening. And as I said, it does exceed our ordinance requirements. And I think the combination of the fencing on the west with the landscaping throughout the site will, as the vegetation grows, do a good job of providing visual screening, but will also provide some noise mitigation. Again, the landscaping exceeds ordinance requirements. Next slide. Transportation. The feasibility study that was done for this project looked at all infrastructure, and as part of that feasibility study does require improvements to 101 at this access point, at this future public street. So they're dedicating, as I said, that half-foot right-of-way, but they will be constructing turn lanes as part of this project, and then they will share the costs of the future public street project in the future. So there are not improvements planned elsewhere along 101, but improvements are being planned by adding the turn lanes here. 101 is a county road, and so the county reviews the project and provides feedback about what improvements are required. And certainly as more development occurs and the Dayton interchange is constructed, this road will feel more pressure from the county, and we hope that they will add it to their CIP program for additional improvements. But that is not something the city can require. Next slide. Municipal sewer is available to serve the site today. Unfortunately, water isn't, so they're going to be doing a temporary well and building the water main as part of this project so that when our water system is online, they'll be able to connect to that Corcoran system. And so that's reflected in the approval conditions and the development contract. Next slide. We've reviewed the conditional use permit standards against the I-1 purpose statement and believe that those standards have been met. Next slide. There is a request for a variance for a wider curb cut. The code limits curb cuts to a maximum of 32 feet, and this applicant is requesting 50. And we do support that request because it's a temporary situation until the new public street is built. So we're allowing it a little closer to the intersection than we normally would to avoid temporary street costs to the applicant. So there's a wider curb cut so that there's no conflict between vehicles entering and leaving, with the condition that that curb cut be eliminated and the driveway be moved west and comply with the 32-foot curb cut standard when the public street is built. So the engineering team has reviewed this, and we do recommend approval of the variance with that condition. Next slide. The council needs to review the standards against the code. In this case, there is no platting. The property was platted as part of the Bellwether project. So if approved, the next step would be for them to simply move forward with a building permit application. Next slide. Staff does recommend adoption of Resolution 2075 with approval of the site plan conditional use permit, variance, and development agreement. We do recommend a modification to 5F. Instead of a recommendation to move the curb cut, we should make that a shall move the curb cut. And certainly as part of a conditional use permit, the council can modify or add conditions as well. But with that, Mr. Mayor, Council, I'd stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Kendra. Yeah, I guess the big thing for me that has always been, as I looked at this one, was the hours of operation. We're hearing that from the citizens as well. And I guess I really empathize with that, or certainly makes sense to me that they'd be concerned with it. Is there a reason that they need those kinds of hours, Kendra? Are we aware of that? Or is it, I mean, is it just what they're asking for, or is it critical to their business to operate till midnight?
Well, I believe their response to the Planning Commission was that it is, but I believe they are here tonight, and I'd feel better if they responded to that question. We do not have anything in our code that limits hours of operation, but I think Ryan Nelson, the applicant, is on the line, Jess, if you'd like to have him respond, Mr. Mayor.
I guess I'd really like to hear about that, because and where I'm going with it is either and or limiting the hours of operation period, or how do you mitigate that? And is there a need to, or a way to have operations, no operations outside of the building beyond certain hours, or can they be moved inside of a building with the doors closed, as an example? And then the other one would be the hours of operation for sales and that area. And I can't imagine that they have to have sales until midnight. So
yeah, Ryan, if he jumps on, should be able to talk about the different components
Yeah.
of the business and why it's important for them to operate outside of the 9 to 5 hours.
Does the applicant have a presentation? No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Mayor and council, you want me to go ahead and answer the question about the hours of operation? This is Ryan Nelson.
Yes,
Please.
Yes, please, Ryan.
Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, it's very common in our business to be open 2 shifts. Part of that is because our customers, a lot of times they use the trucks during the day, and the only time that we can service them are in the evenings. And of course, there's jobs that take multiple days, so they overlap into the day shift. But so there is kind of just a makeup of how the vehicles are operated, and when we have time to actually work on them. So that kind of drives the service department need to be open in the evenings. We discussed a little bit about the noise and ways to mitigate that. And I know the people at the KOA were talking about after 9 o'clock, potentially having the doors shut on the building. We're planning on air conditioning the shop. We don't want to run the air conditioning constantly year round, but if it was something that we'd prefer not to have a door shut time in the way we operate, but if that's necessary, makes the mayor and the council members more comfortable with approval, we could probably accommodate a required time to shut the doors. And at that point, when it's hot out, I'd have to turn AC on. And how we probably intend to use the AC is if we have a certain heat index number, we would turn the AC on and shut the doors. That's kind of our plan. I guess that's something that I'd be willing to entertain.
Well, I think, let me give you a little bit of feedback on that is, you're putting this operation into an area that is more sensitive than you might be used to noise. So I'm not very concerned with whether you have to spend money on air conditioning. I think closing the doors is if that's something that allows you to still do your operation is an acceptable solution to me. Whether, I understand you'd prefer not to, but I think our citizens around you would prefer that you do. So.
Okay. And I guess I can elaborate on a few of the other concerns at this point, or I guess we can continue, and I can elaborate later if you want to hear more about some of the people who called in and their concerns about noise, smell.
I would like to add one before you, just so you can have them all in order. Jake brakes are a huge concern for me. And I used to live by a truck driver, and I knew when he was coming home because I could hear his Jake brakes all the way from when he got off 94, which was 2 miles, all the way to our house. And I think I've gotten a lot of emails specifically about that, more so even than, I think there's a sort of industrial that's quiet and doesn't impact anybody, but more so it's like, how does, if you're open till midnight, people are going to be jake braking on 101 all the way, I assume, up till 11:45 or whatever. So I don't know how you mitigate that. I don't know if it's possible.
Well, is that something we can do as a greater city ordinance? A lot of cities have that ordinance in place. So it would benefit more than just this area if we looked at that. And looking at the topography of our roads, I don't know that it'd be that great of an issue for a lot of commercial vehicles not to be able to use it in our city because there's not a lot of steep hills coming to stop signs.
They still use it by my house all the time. I live off of 116 and fairly close to 30, County Road 30 intersection. And I mean, they're 2, 3, 4 times a day. They just do it. I mean, I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Frankly, I hear more traffic on 116 not related to commercial trucks than anything else. I hear a lot of motorcycles racing up 116, and I hear a lot of cars accelerating hard and whatnot as well. So it's not just an issue with trucks in the city, but yeah, it's a point well taken. If I can add a couple more things to the applicant before he goes into maybe a presentation. One of the things the KOA raised was noise, and you're doing a lot of stuff with landscaping, but I have a question with regarding to the building design and how you operate. The service bays, do you typically pull into a service bay and back out of a service bay so headlights wouldn't be an impact for people of the KOA as vehicles are coming in and out of service bays on the eastern side of the building?
Yes, normally we pull into the building and not back into the building.
Okay.
It's a normal procedure for us.
And I just have one more question on noise. So most of the vehicle maintenance is, or all vehicle maintenance is done inside the building. I understand there's times where vehicles will probably sit outside to idle to get to an engine temperature to work on. Do you
Yeah.
ever, is there, I know they do this with some actual smaller diesel vehicles, but do you ever put a vehicle into a regeneration mode where it sits there and runs at a high idle speed for a prolonged period of time?
Yes, we do. That does happen occasionally, depending on diagnostic requirements. It's usually about a 15-minute time span. Again, it produces some sound. You know, I mean, we prefer that, you know, that nobody idles vehicles on the lot, especially, you know, we can put up signs that say, you know, please shut your engine off. There would be we would probably set up a particular area at the facilities, you know, as far away from anybody can hear, to do a diagnostic operation like that. Again, it's not the newer vehicles, which we mainly work on ever since 2010, or actually 2007, have had what they call diesel particulate filters and selective catalyst reduction filters. So I mean, the exhaust systems are very elaborate. They're much quieter than they used to be. There's still some older trucks around that you're probably hearing the Jake brakes from, but the newer trucks, they don't emit anywhere near the sound and noise that older trucks do.
And they don't admit the smell. I can attest to that. My diesel pickup, I leave it idle in my garage all the time, and it's just as clean as my newer Toyota car.
If they're
just as quiet.
If they're functioning properly, the inside of the tailpipe should be just as clean as the intake on the engine. So, but you know, so we mainly work on, you know, newer vehicles, and normally when vehicles are coming to service for us, they don't bring a trailer. It's usually just a power unit. Normally they don't use Jake brakes as much when they're empty, but a lot of communities, I believe Fargo, where we operate, has a no Jake brake policy and signs up for that purpose. But even that being said, the newer vehicles that have the newer emissions on them, they're even while they're Jake braking, are significantly quieter than a lot of the older vehicles are. And when they're empty, they usually don't use the Jake brake. But
what's the definition of significantly?
I would say, well, compared to a truck that doesn't have mufflers on it, which was more common, you know, 10, 15 years ago, I would say, you know, anywhere from, you know, 20 to 30 or more decibels. And to put that in context, you know, I went up, we have a decibel meter that we use for work here. And you know, I stood at the KOA at about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and I measured decibel levels. And so I believe that when there was no vehicles going by, the background decibel level was around 65. And when a truck would go by, that would get closer to 90 decibels. And when a car would go by, it was around 85. And it averaged around 75 decibels. But so just to give you kind of a context, you know, a small reduction in the decibel number is a significant reduction in noise. So like from 5 decibel reduction in noise is significant. But yeah, that's as far as I could say that the noise emission out of the newer vehicles is significantly less than it was, you know, 10 to 15 years ago. And noise, smell, all of the above. They're just a much quieter piece of equipment in general. I believe somebody asked about the air tools and the mufflers, and I did supply the city a chart, I thought, at one point with different mufflers for those, and that was a 20 to 30 decibel reduction in the output noise of the air tool. And we also have to be careful and adhere to OSHA standards with our noise levels in our buildings for our mechanics. So we have to always be concerned about mitigating, you know, a lot of loud noises inside the building too. So it's not just outside, it's also inside for our own use. And I know that, you know, and Wilmer had, you know, we haven't had any noise complaints here. We try to be a good neighbor. I'm a little bit offended by what the one caller said, because my house is located directly behind the dealership here in Wilmer. So I didn't think it was a cheap home, but anyways, I mean, even though that, you know, they came in after we were here, I guarantee you that if people were offended, they would make with the noise with no basically zero mitigation, you know, as far as screening, that they would complain and say something if we are. So I think that at least says something, or was worth something. We try to be a good neighbor.
Your large sign that's going to be on the eastern side of the building, that'll be illuminated.
Yes.
All night long.
I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be illuminated all night long. So we could set it up on a timer to shut off when we're actually closed. It's not absolutely necessary that it would be on once we're closed, if that's a concern.
Yeah, it would probably be a good consideration to the KOA, since the illumination of that light will be higher than any screening.
Yeah, and I believe we have to meet candle power outputs with the city code with the background lighting on the site in general, and including the signage, from what I understand.
What percentage of, you know, you had said, I read that the newer diesel engines, oh, my video's off. The newer diesel engines had like 80 decibels, which is I read that it's like a blender, runs at 80 decibels. And typically the older ones, the braking is at 100 decibels. So what, do you know what percent, like break it down, what percentage of if it's 20 vehicles per night, how many when they jake brake are going to be at 100 decibels? How many when they jake brake are going to be at 80 decibels?
Oh, I can't say exactly, but normally they're going to come to us empty or without a trailer. So normally they don't use a jake brake in them situations, but I would say it's a fairly small percentage that, you know, we are, we charge a lot of people with the older trucks that don't have the newer emission systems. You know, they don't usually frequent our type of dealership for their service. They don't, we charge higher labor rates. We do OEM labor or warranty work. And
okay.
A lot of times then people will take them to a second tier shop. And so we don't see that many of that type of vehicle normally in our businesses, but I can't say it won't ever happen, but I would say the percentage is probably 10% at most. And then as to the traffic flow, I know there were several people are concerned about the corner by Mama G's. The majority of our traffic is going to come from the north. And I think Kendra was right when she said that once the exit is done off the interstate, that it will change the pressure on the 101 road in general.
Kendra, can I ask you a question in regards to that? I believe it was with the Quality Matters repair sales on Mystique Drive when that moved into that neighborhood. I thought they put a condition on there that's just south of this facility off 101. I thought we had
Motorcycle place.
Yeah, I thought we had a condition on there that customers were supposed to access that facility directly off 101 and not through the neighborhood.
Well, they had to go through
No, we couldn't do that. We could only suggest it. We could not require customers to go a certain direction on a, I couldn't enforce it.
But was it part of the conditional use?
Well, I'm pulling it up now. I remember talking about it, but you know, you have to get to Mystique from a different way. You have to come off something.
We limited the trips, and then in that discussion, we talked about whether or not we could basically tell people their means and travel on a public road, which is illegal. And so it was a limit number of
You do it as a condition of advertisement, though?
Yeah, but this was, remember, this is a home occupation too that you're talking about.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is if there's concern about traffic going south on 101, and the primary concern, primary access is, can we ask that they not include directions on their web pages which shows access from the south on off County Road 30?
Mayor and Council, just jump in. That's pretty much in the weeds there. I mean, people can travel where they want on a county road built for that traffic. So
yeah, no, I'm not suggesting we enforce any type of action against anybody that drives from the south. I'm just suggesting that as part of advertisement, when they're showing directions on how do they get to their facility, they show directions from the north coming either off 94 or down through Rogers.
I would not have a problem with, putting that into our, into our directions and our websites and whatnot. I know, just frequenting that area that with a truck, you literally have to have a need to go south, southwest, southeast out of there with a truck. I mean, the only reason that a truck driver would be going that way with any kind of truck would be, I would expect to be delivering a load and not, it's not by any means productive to go that way to get through that part of the, the countryside.
I think when the Brockton interchange is open, you won't be finding many people coming up from the south, getting off at County Road 30 in Maple Grove and then driving up 101 to your facility. They'll be taking 94 directly to Brockton interchange and then back down.
Yeah, that'll be the primary way that customers will get to us.
Okay.
I would just note that the light ordinance, the sign ordinance does have conditions that require the lighting to be dimmed at night. The lighting standards don't require it to be off, but it does require it to be dimmed.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
I've got a couple questions. I walked the property the other day and I noticed there's a lot of old growth oak trees that are on the very, I guess I'd call it the western edge of the buildable area. And then it comes into a wetland as you're going west. I just wondered if it's possible to require that those trees would, they're at least 100 years old, some of that old growth oak. Is it possible to have a condition that those would never be taken down?
Well, the city doesn't have a tree preservation ordinance, so I'm not sure.
Can it be done as a condition?
What are you trying to mitigate?
I just think in a community where it's a valuable thing to have a 100-year oak tree on your property, and there's several of them over there. I would plus it is a partial screening. I mean, the map I got from Wink here, it's only 600 feet from the building to the Bellwether development. I mean, I've shot over half the deer I've shot in my life has been a longer shot than that. You know, so that's not a long ways. And you know, I'll just I don't know that anybody from Bellwether and even KOA, or even I talked with a developer who owns a property just to the south of the KOA, and none of them are feeling that this is going to enhance the value of their property. So at the end of the day, if it appears that giving a CUP is going to diminish the enjoyment of people on their property, that's something we need to at least take into consideration, because all the feedback we've gotten tonight from basically residents in this area is negative about it. Not one of them has been positive about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between this and the Eagle Brook Church one.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I think we can't get too curious. I mean, we can't go down the hole of saying we have to protect from something here, but to the extent we did on the other one. I mean, this is a use that's been forecast. It's been divulged to the residents who are moving in.
Right.
And it's been in the
I do
plan
have
for a long time.
I agree with you, Mayor. My other question, though, then would be, there's a lot of variables, shall we say, in light industrial. Not all are semi-trucks with the kind of noise, the issues we've been talking about here. Would that a different type of light industrial business be a better fit for this particular spot? And would this business be better suited moving further north to the border where that other 80-acre parcel is, and it's closer to the interchange? I just want to field that as a question, because there's nothing built up there yet. So, and it's guided that way, and I'm assuming the owners up there are certainly would be open to wanting to sell that. So that's just.
Council jump. I mean, the real issue is here. The council needs to focus on the application in front of it, and not what if could it be in a different location. As Kendra outlined, really, you know, it's the conditional use permit, and if it meets the conditions, and then mitigating those conditions. So, if there's a specific reason that those trees could help mitigate something, I think that's a consideration. There, as Kendra stated, there is no tree preservation ordinance in Corcoran. And that's really how the council would have a tool to really provide that. Now, I haven't memorized the tree plan, or if we even have a tree plan yet. I know the plans are specifically for those trees. Kendra, is there a tree plan, and does it say anything about those trees?
I mean, they're not planning to impact the wetland. And if I understood Council Member Lothar, I think the trees you're talking about are on the west half of the property, which is not impacted. So they're not being proposed to be removed at all. There's no work being done on the west half of the property.
Right. So, but my question is one of more informational. Again, I'm new to the game here, so you have to be patient with me a little bit. But is it within our purview to say we don't want these 100-year-old trees to be cut down? Can that be part of the conditions we add, or am I off base? I need some information from you.
To say, gosh, it's an old tree, we should save it, would be difficult to attach as a condition when we don't have a tree preservation ordinance.
Right.
If there was a specific stand of trees that preserving would provide a tool to mitigate for a concern that the council has, I think that's different.
Okay.
But
so
just 100 years old, I don't know that that's a.
Well, it is again a partial screening to the west that I think is beneficial, you know. And again, we're concerned about screening to the east with the KOA, and along 101. Should we be also concerned about screening to the west for sight lines.
I want to dovetail off what you said, Brian. And the discussion about that it's been zoned industrial for 40 years. There's, like you said, there are many kinds of industrial uses. There are, industrial uses that produce no noise, and the actual customers produce no noise, and they're not open until midnight. There's enormous reservation on the owner's part of having the work done indoors. And ideally, the ideal time for being outside in Minnesota and enjoying being outside is when the temperature is like between 55 and I guess 75, which you don't need air conditioning at that time. So the doors are going to be open and people are going to be working, and anybody knows, everybody knows that there are noises produced when you're working on things with the doors open. So I don't mind so much the industrial use, but for me, the question is, the heart of the matter is it injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity? That to me is the question we need to figure out and ask. And I think I'm focused on the noise. Is it going to be too noisy for the campgrounds in Maple Grove? Then, but we should be good neighbors. Is it injurious to their enjoyment? And I think it is. I think it is to the neighbors to the south too. I'm open to something that would mitigate that, something that would not permit noise from the location after a certain time, or something that would give me some confidence that there's not going to be a bunch of noise up until 11:45. And I haven't heard anything like that.
So in that vein, John, why wouldn't having the door shut after 9 o'clock and no outside work being done after 9 o'clock take care of that?
Because nobody has said that they would have the doors closed after 9 o'clock.
Okay, I suggested early on that'd be a condition, but.
Oh, okay.
That's what we have to focus on, is what are concerning us and how do we mitigate that? And I think maybe sooner rather than later we should get to where we're looking at this under a motion, and then we can add or subtract from that as we move forward, because we need to stay focused on this as far as what we're trying to accomplish. I've heard that the concerns that we have are hours of operation, and that's based mostly on noise. I would suggest that the way we mitigate that is to require the doors be shut after 9 o'clock. They've already said they're going to use mufflers on the tools when they're outside working on, and in fact, they use them inside because of OSHA. So, and then the sign illumination, that we can ask that be dimmed. It's already required to be dimmed at night, and maybe be shut off after pick a time. Those seem to me to be the two of the things that we've addressed. If there are other ones, let's get them on the table and start talking about them specifically rather than generally.
I'd agree with you with regards to having the doors shut after a certain time to mitigate sound. I guess my question is 9 o'clock a time consistent with what we allow contractors to work till in the city? It's 10, isn't it?
Correct.
So we're going to tell these guys to shut their doors at 9 o'clock, but somebody can have a construction worker pounding nails till 10 o'clock right next door. That part doesn't seem fair to me. So if we're going to set an hour of operation for quiet time, we should run it across the board. So if 10 o'clock is our standard, I think we should push 10 o'clock, or else consider moving everything else in the city up by an hour, to be fair.
There's nothing magical about 9 o'clock to me. I'm just picking a number. So
No, I mean, at 9 o'clock, I understand that it works well with the KOA and it's conducive to
and
neighbors.
yeah, and a little difference is they can continue working after 9 o'clock. We're not stopping that. We're just saying to close the doors. A construction company, they can't continue it. I mean, they can't close the door on building a house. It's just you gotta, if you're working framing a house, you've got to be outside pounding nails. So it's
Right. There's just,
so
they get to go an hour longer.
yeah, with the construction people, we're saying you can't work after 9 o'clock. With these folks, we're saying you can continue working just after you have your door shut. So I think there's a difference there.
I would be agreeable to that, and I would hope we'd put some condition on the illumination of the sign, because having sitting there in your camper trying to go to sleep and you have a big international sign illuminating at you at midnight.
So what do you suggest on that, Alan?
Well, I can understand their point of having it lit until their hours of operation end at midnight. I would suggest it does not go beyond that. It go dark at that point.
Okay, so the sign has to be shut off after midnight. And by ordinance, they have to lower the illumination after dark. Is that true, Kendra?
That's correct. After dusk, then the light intensity needs to be reduced to 0.3 foot candle.
Okay.
As measured 100 feet.
So those are two additional conditions we have: is the door shut after 9 o'clock, and the sign illumination has to be off after operating hours, and follow ordinances on the intensity of it. Are there any other conditions that people want to see to mitigate the concerns?
What about a Jake breaks ordinance?
I would think we'd want to have a Jake break ordinance throughout all of Corcoran, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But can we do that before we, what's the, how do we do that?
I would guess that's a totally separate thing. They could be operating for 10 years and we could bring in a Jake ordinance. I mean,
but if they have a accepted CUP before the Jake break ordinance and that's part of their procedure, can we disallow Jake breaks after we've already?
It's a little hard to enforce it and to hold the applicant accountable for somebody that comes into their office, and they might not even, the truck might not even pull into their facility. It might break and then take off.
Yeah, that's not.
I hear you.
It's outside. It has nothing to do with this operation. So I think I agree. We want a Jake break ordinance, but we could tell them you can't Jake break. They can't, as Alan says, they can't stop the drivers coming down there from doing it. We need to take city responsibility for that and put signs out and enforce it. So, my point, John, I don't think we can make it a condition of this and have any effect on it. So it's.
I hear you. I just.
Yep. Nope. I appreciate it.
So can I just ask another question from the feedback we've gotten from the neighbors, et cetera, do you feel that reducing the luminance on the sign and closing the doors at 9 o'clock, do you think that actually meets their concerns?
The short answer to it, I don't think we can do anything short of rejecting this application to meet all their concerns. They don't. This isn't unusual for a new development coming in or new anything or change coming in. You're not going to meet everybody's concerns about it. I think in my opinion, this addresses their major concerns, which is hours of operations and noise. And I think we can do as good a job as we can on it.
Do we have any, not legal, but maybe ethical responsibility to talk to Bellwether and make sure that they're really clear on their sales pitches to new customers? It appears as though there was maybe less than forthrightness on some of this with this property, or am I reading that wrong?
Well, to me, irrespective of that, whether we do or not, it's outside of this thing that's in front of us. We could take that up as a separate issue, but I don't think that's pertinent to this.
I'm sorry to keep getting us off track here. I just have
those are questions. They're valid questions, but I think we need
Yeah.
We need to stay focused. We're dealing with this application we have right
Yeah.
here, and we've had enough side discussions on things. Let's stay focused on what we're trying to get done
Okay,
here.
my apologies.
No problem.
Okay.
No need to apologize at all. Any other conditions that people would like to see or mitigating things? Okay, hearing none, I would suggest that I would entertain a motion to approve. What resolution is it? 2020-75 as presented with the added condition of the doors being closed after 9 o'clock and the sign illumination the sign is turned off after the operating hours.
Mr. Mayor, and just, oh, sorry, Kendra's probably gonna say it.
Go ahead.
Oh, the addition of the change of the condition that Kendra put in her presentation with the shall instead of the recommendation.
Yes, yeah.
So moved. Schultz.
Second, Anderson. Oops.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson?
Aye.
Bodema?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
And Lothar?
Aye.
Great, okay. Thank you. Thanks for, good job, staff. Nice job, and good job from the council on getting through another.
So a
difficult,
follow-up, can we add to the agenda getting the Jake breaks stuff?
Mayor and Council,
In a
I'll follow
future
with
date.
Matt. I'll follow with Matt and provide some information to the council. So to see if you truly want to do that, but I'll send in information via email first and we can decide to put that on the agenda.
I won't talk about that anymore, Ron.
that's fine. I'm all in favor of stopping Jake breaks. The other thing I think we should take a look at, I would suggest this on a really back burner for after the first of the year, that we look at this area and look at the types of things we want in that area. And where I'm going with that is I don't want to get to where we're doing a lot of auto sales and auto repairs, the whole strip mall of that along that area. I think we can use, we have very limited industrial space, and I think we want to make sure we get the best use we can. I think we've gotten far enough along in this now that we can start focusing down a little more and maybe fine tuning some things. So I would suggest, irrespective of who the council members are, Brad, you maybe put that on the, bring it up as a subject. If people don't want to talk about it, we can not do it, but it might be a good subject with the new council next year.
Well, it's a hopeful plan, but people need to realize we don't attract business. We don't go out and try to solicit businesses to our city. Businesses come to us because there's a willing seller and an opportunity to purchase, and it fits the guidance. And that's what happened here. I'm sure there was other plans that we would have loved to have in its place, but this was a good facility and a good fit, and I think it will be a good fit for the city.
And I don't mean to suggest that this is a bad application at all. I have no problem with this whatsoever. I'm just saying this has highlighted a fact of there are different types of industrial use, and we may want to look at if we want to put limits on or not. I don't know that we do or not, but I think it's a discussion point. So, Brian, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes. Could we also maybe visit or revisit the whole tree? Should we have a tree ordinance and so forth? You know, I mean, I'm not. You know,
we can do that if you want to. I'm going to tell you, I'm opposed to it, but we can look at it. Or if you can get the council to go along with it, we can look at it.
I'm not an environmental wacko. I mean, I'm just not.
But,
you know, and I don't mean to be offensive to anybody that
that
might hear me say that.
A little background, Brian, is if the last time we started talking about a tree ordinance, we had some major tree stands that were shut down or were cut down the next day.
Oh, well.
Not literally the next day, but very quickly after.
Yeah,
pretty close.
Yeah. But I think we've had some discussion since about a carrot versus a stick mentality when it comes to tree preservation with future development in mind.
Yeah.
So it's a subject that has to be addressed with some good understanding of history and
I'm wondering if do we, maybe this is a question for Kendra too, do we need a tree ordinance in order to implement aspects on a condition regarding trees?
In all due respect, Brian, it's 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
This is a subject I think we can
All right.
investigate later. when we're all operating
Send me
on
your
a better.
personal response, Kendra. So
You could talk to Kendra anytime you wish about it.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sorry. Okay, under unfinished business, there is none. New business, we have a job offer for a planner. Brad, you can want to take that?
Just quickly, we do advertise a public comment opportunity. Maybe
Um,
just take a minute here just to see, or it's up to you. It's just regarding a position posting for the city.
You know, I'm going to take a little bit of prudence here and take the bully pulpit and say we're not going to take public comment on this issue.
Sounds good. They can reach out to me direct.
They've always been able to reach out to us, and for people's understanding, it's very, very rare for a council to take public comment in a council meeting. We're probably the only city in the state of Minnesota that's been doing that. It's something we added because of the Zoom meetings. My vote is going to be to discontinue it when we get away from the Zoom meetings. I'm not convinced that it's a very good process, and you know, it is what it is, and I'm not begrudging what we've done with it, but there's not a vested right in having public comment for every subject. The council is supposed to be here to deliberate and have the facts when we come into the meeting. We should have gotten those facts from people before we get here. We shouldn't be making up our mind in the middle of a meeting on what we're going to do. So anyway, having said that, let's talk about the job offer to a planner.
Mayor and Council, just some background here. We've used contract planning for a long time in Corcoran, and the idea behind that is just limiting full-time staff as need be in Corcoran. We use a lot of consultants, and Kendra and her team have done a wonderful job. She had one small sabbatical that she brings up on occasion, but other than that, her team's been here doing great work. We're getting busier and busier, however, and just really as a part of a customer service model about having a planner here 40 hours a week, as opposed to a day a week, and then of course available by other means, of course, as well. But really that need to have a planner on site, and then just the additional ordinance updates we've been talking about. We've had enough work to hire a planner for a long time, actually. We had budgeted this position to come on July 1st, but due to COVID, we just put off hiring, just didn't know what was going to happen. Developers for a couple weeks said they were going to hold back their plats, and then they've gone quicker than ever at this point still, and we are as busy as ever. And actually, even if development stops, we have work for a planner here. So we did post. We had 31 applicants apply. We had really good applicants. We had 12 people for the first round interview, 6 I believe for the second, and I had a final interview with 2 individuals. Both I'd be willing to make an offer for, but one I intend to make an offer. I guess there's some final details to work out. My request is the council authorized the mayor and myself to finalize a job offer for the position. The ability to do conditional offers kind of changed, so we actually have to be prepared to make a full offer after everything is done, background, everything. And rather than waiting 2 more weeks to bring you back that candidate, I can hopefully get things done in a couple days and work with the mayor and then provide a full description of who that individual is as well at that time. So that's the request to authorize myself and the mayor to finalize a job offer for the position.
I entertain a motion to authorize as such.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Lothar,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Exciting.
It is exciting. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, staff reports. We have the active planning applications, which we just take that as advice, so we accept that. Pandemic response update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes. Currently in the state of Minnesota, we're about 92,000 confirmed COVID cases, with over 26,000 of those in Hennepin County. On the city level, we're still operating our EOC. It's our gathering point for communications and to coordinate our city response. So we're also continuing to track our inventory of PPE, which right now especially relates to the ongoing elections and trying to keep our staff and visitors safe. Our current COVID expenses are at about $49,000. Our EOC is still tracking and documenting the expenses, and we are still in the process of seeking FEMA reimbursement for a large share of them. We're still making sure that we're attending the state, county, and local coordination meetings making sure that we're on the same page, and then we're informed as to any changes that are coming out, or new guidance or recommendations, as they seem to be evolving still. You've previously seen approved plans for CARES Act expenditures related to COVID risk mitigation. Those projects have started, and you'll start seeing those claims. Anything else? Brad, go ahead and share anything else you might have.
No, that's everything I had, other than just highlighting again all the work that Jessica and her team are doing with having an election during a pandemic. I was over there a couple times today, and the care they're taking for people who are coming in is really, really nice to see, and anyone should feel comfortable voting in Corcoran. I'm proud to say that with the work Jessica's done.
Work, Jessica.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go, Jessica,
Jess.
go. Huh?
Go.
Okay, now that we've embarrassed her, let's move on. Okay, the 2020 council schedule for the rest of the year.
Mayor and Council, just a note, we're working as hard and fast as we can. Some of these things are probably going to fall off for next meeting, but we do have the bond sale, the refunding of the bonds. We're hopefully going to save $400,000 over the term. The CARES Act funding resolution, a few other items too that we'll go over. But if you have questions on upcoming agendas, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Is there any other business, Brad? Anything from council? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bottoма,
Aye.
Lothar,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Great. Well, thank you very much, council. It was a good discussion. So the process went really well. It was longer than it maybe had to be, but it was we rung things out quite well, and I think we did a good job for the citizens. Thank you, staff.
Thank
Nice
you all.
job,
Super
everyone.
Nice job, Mayor.
Yeah.
Nice job,
Thank
Brad.
you, the community,
Nice job,
for being
Kendi.
involved.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good thing to have happen.
Stay
Right.
involved.
Yep.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Night
night.
all.